Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is June 26th, 2024, and we're going to look at Bitcoin here on the daily chart to start. And I do want to let all of you know that if you haven't watched the Macro Mondays video, I do cover the bull case and the bear case from here. So I do think it's worth watching. You can find it on my X profile, and you can also find it on YouTube. So I will provide links to that underneath of today's video as well. If you haven't watched it, it is a longer one. I do suggest that you look over that video and be aware of what the cases are on both sides. Doesn't matter how you feel about the markets. You should know what the criteria is and what the conditions are. So I do lay that out in those videos, or in that video, I should say, on Monday. Now, Bitcoin is in a pretty key area. Right now, it's still trading in between the March of 2021 monthly and quarterly closing high at $58,800 to $59,000 to this topside October of 2021 monthly closing high at 61,350. So it did close above it in Tuesday's candle and then close back inside in Wednesday's candle. So this is still Wednesday for me, but this is the Thursday candle currently trading right now. And there is a few things to be aware of. So if Bitcoin drops the wick low over here of the prior higher low, the first higher low of the prior uptrend, I should say, at around 60,000 to 60,150, just from the daily, I'd be looking for a run of the lows again. At minimum, you could see that this is where the close open came in just above that 60,150 here on spot price action. If Bitcoin starts to trade down below there, I'm looking generally down to the March of 2021, even monthly and quarterly, somewhere around $58,800 to $59,000. Could it get front run above there? Sure. There are a bunch of wicks over here where it could get front run at, but that's generally what I'd be targeting as somewhere to run this area down to the current moves low, which is coming in at 58,400 or so. If Bitcoin does lose that current low, I'm looking for a direct test of the lower low close open at 58, 2 to 3. I would take $58,000 on a swing in terms of target, not necessarily a trade, but on a target basis. And if that area does start to break down, we're looking to the actual lower low wick of the range here, or the lowest swing here at 56,500. If that breaks down, I would be looking for a swing into the mid 50s. If it does happen to get bought back up above there, it needs to do a lot of work and start closing right back above, 59 and then 61,350, 61K or so. So right back above this monthly closing high zone from the prior cycle. Otherwise, I would start to target the 53 to $50,000. This is the September of 2021 weekly swing high to the closing highs from October and December of 2021 respectively. And very quickly, I just want to point out that this is exactly the area that we had previously found resistance at this year in 2024. Found resistance at 53, got picked up in the $50,000 region at the closes, and then right on to the new all-time highs. So that would be the next logical area. Of course, I cover all of this in Monday's video, so I do suggest you give that a watch. Let's go ahead and check on momentum. This is a regular Stoch, not a Stoch RSI. Stoch RSI measures the velocity of RSI, so it is an indicator of an indicator. In this case, this is a regular Stoch. This measures close over close price momentum. The pivot is currently at 59, 500 to 600, depending on which direction Bitcoin is trading in the daily candle. Right now it's green, so that's a little bit higher than it normally would be. It oscillates around midday. You want to see the daily close come in above there, around that, 59,600 or so. Now, this does offer up some potential for safe retests from the volatility standpoint. So when looking at price right now, Bitcoin can come back down to that lower second, which is coming in just above that pivot number that I just talked about for Stoch. And this is coming in at 59,750. If Bitcoin does come down here in the lower term timeframes, as long as it's trading above it, then I'd be looking for potential bottoming patterns in those timeframes. Otherwise, if it starts trading below it, and especially if it closes the daily below it, we're definitely looking to that low side structure of the current move down to the lower low structure again. If it can regain, however, the lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here, which is just above the current wick highs coming in at around 62,500, then that would set this swing low and closing low in place. And I would be looking for, right around shorter term time frame resistance around 63 to 63.5, and then 64 to $65,000, right where this basis band, which is a 20 simple moving average, is coming in. Now, I do want to discuss this. I've seen a lot of Bitcoin back above 65, really bullish. Yeah, it might be bullish, but I would tell you right now, this downtrend is intact while Bitcoin is trading below this lower high right here at 67,274. And here's why. So for those of you that may not have seen this before, Bitcoin had the big move up. I've seen me explain this before. It had the big move up on expansion. Nice higher low, lower high, higher low, higher high. So we were looking for a consolidation. Criteria was break down from 65K. Then we're looking for a move back to this big monthly closing zone. We did get that lower low. And then the first big lower high of the range was at 67,272. And then, of course, it made the lower low, the deviation of that monthly quarterly down there from March of 2021. Bounced back up, found the $65,000 area as resistance with a top in wick in rather at 65.5, close in at $64,000, another major lower high. But it moved right into a higher low structure from there and created the uptrend. After closing above the 65.5 wick high, it broke the downtrend, and then we were looking for it to break the next downtrending high, which was the 67,272. We saw that it found resistance there, got a nice little swing higher low, and then closing higher low above it. And then what was holding up price action on its consolidation low prior to the double top? Well, it was 67,272. And on this downtrend, it bounced at $65,000. And where did it find resistance? 67,272. Now, the reason why I'm calling this out and I'm stressing this so much is this is the actual lower high that will break this current downtrend. Why is this the lower high that will break the downtrend and not this swing low to swing high? Because this had a bounce up with a low to an actual closing lower high, whereas this is a swing low to a swing high. It is not as important or relevant to me until we start seeing the closes come in above 67,274 from here. Now, do I think that that's very likely that Bitcoin is going to pump right off the lows and take out that specific high to break the downtrend, higher low its way out of here? I don't think it's as likely as many right now do think. I could be wrong because Bitcoin does crazy things and has big volatile moves in terms of, a nice extended move on expansion to the downside here. But the Bollinger Band setup is telling me no. All of the key areas for the volatility levels are coming right in line with resistances, whether it's locally or right at major overhead resistances. 65.5 is the wick high over here, and it's right around that first cycle or first top in 2021 at $65,000. So, if it can trade above there, great. I'd be looking for it to play up to those zones, but I need to see a daily close above 67,274 in order to get excited for a downtrend break and then look for higher lows or equal lows from here. Now, my thesis is that Bitcoin is more than likely going to do something like this, and that is come up. If it does hold this current low side structure, come up, maybe somewhere around $64,000 at this close to the overhead resistance at 65 to 65.5. Come up, make a lower high, come down and either make a higher low or an equal low that doesn't pass the current wick low at 58,400, and then much easier lower high to take out from there to change the downtrend at around somewhere around $64,000 to $65,000. That's the more likely scenario, from a probabilistic standpoint, as it stands right now. So That's what I'm looking out for. Does that rule out pumping straight up to 67 to 274, taking that out on a close, and then just, higher low on its way off 65 and then just going on a run? No, that can absolutely happen. But now you know the criteria. So if it does occur, then we'd be looking for higher lows either way. What I think is more than likely going to occur is another lower high, and then we start hunting for either higher lows or equal lows. Otherwise, if it's another lower high and it makes a lower low, it's still a downtrend. So keep that in mind. Now, from the daily's perspective, if it does lock in a low, again, that's going to be around 62.5 on a close today. We would get a drive of bullish divergence of the hidden variety, so a hidden bull div off of this lower low RSI structure. And if it does close above around 62,500, that would also put it above this 12 simple moving average here on RSI, and it would put it outside of the bullish control zone. Bullish control zone. This is the bearish control zone. Man, it's been so bullish for so long. In this case, this is the bearish control zone. Let me correct myself. This would, a close above $62,000 would even get it out of the bearish control zone, but above 62.5 on a daily close, we would see it lock in the low on a close and a swing, as well as getting out of the bearish control zone and above the 12-period moving average. That doesn't mean that it doesn't retest the lows, but it would be, the first sign that things are ready to maybe try for a wider bounce from there. So pressure still on to the downside right now. So don't get it confused with this is all roses and daisies and stuff like that, or whatever the saying is. Now on the 12-hour, do be aware, lower second standard deviation, just like the daily, can be safely retested. Don't want to see closures below. Otherwise, we're looking to the actual low of the move and lower, as that would be confirmation below not only a closing low on the 12-hour, but also expansion into this support again to test that low and possibly lower. Now, if Bitcoin gets above the same area that I just talked about on the daily, that would set a daily low, well, you can see Bitcoin currently has, a downtrending structure, whereas the last lower high, it's actually at 62,500. So, if Bitcoin can close a 12-hour candle above there on the 12-hour, we would have a downtrend break. And then we come back to it for higher low structure, possibly equal low structure from there. So the lower first is going to be the primary resistance on the 12-hour right now. If it starts closing above 61,350, I would look for it to try up to 62 to 62.5. So that's what I would look for from the 12-hour perspective. The reason why I bring up the 12 hours, this next couple of 12-hour candles, well, the next 12-hour candle and then the subsequent one that closes with the daily are going to be important to watch, as they are going to inform how the daily is going to start looking. Closes above 59,711 in this case. It's going to keep the 12-hour to the upside. That doesn't mean that price can't dip below during that time period in between the close, but if it does start to lose that area as a pivot, then you'll see the oscillator turn back down. Is there a potential for bullish divergence? We got a lot of hidden bull divs going on here that aren't populating because I don't have the look back set that far. But yeah, I would just keep an eye on that. 4 hours, another time frame to keep an eye on as it relates to the 12-hour. We see the expansion into compression. Bulls better be careful. They want to get that oscillator pointed back to the upside here. So let's look at the criteria here. We had the beautiful expansion to the downside here on the 4-hour. What I love, in downside moves or upside moves, it's the opposite way. But we got the expansion down in this case. I like when we see whatever it is, whatever it's an asset, indice, crypto, doesn't matter. You get the expansion down and then it comes down for a retest of the lower second. That's one of my favorite setups. Even stronger is if it holds like a lower first and then starts to put in, higher low structure and take out the highs. But in this case, this can safely test down in the 4-hour in between the 12-hour and daily closes down to that 59,600, 700 area by the lower second. As long as it's not closing below, then we're not looking for the lower low to get run. If it does start closing below, then we do. But, it's one of my favorite setups is looking for a bounce in and around those areas. Right now, the 4-hour needs to get above 61,350 around the basis band to go and even test 62 to 62.5. If it does that, then you've got a higher low and then possibly a trend break. So you would have a higher high from there, and then you look for the trend to keep forming. 4 hour though it's rejecting the bullish control zone of Stoke right now, so they need to get closed. Bulls need to get closes above around 61,550. So something to watch for in the lower term timeframes here. Now I do want to note this is not something I'm going to discuss today. Maybe if I do a video tomorrow, we can discuss it. But we have some pretty big closures coming up. Something just fell beside me, and I have no idea what it was. Freaked me out. We have some pretty big closures coming up, as we do have with the next 2-day candle closing. We have not just a 2-day candle close. We have a 3-day candle close. We have a 4-day candle close. And you guessed it, a 5-day candle close. So we literally have in the next 2 days all of the major time frames closing below the weekly, basically, that I follow. And that's going to be big. I'm going to give you a hint before I go. You want to see Bitcoin closing above the lower second on the 5-day. And that is coming in at 60,500. So again, to sum it up, Bitcoin above $60,000 for the daily, and even trading in some of the lower term timeframes above $60,000. This first downtrending higher low, and then to trend break. So we had the downtrend, we had the higher low that kicked off the uptrend. You want to see that wick low held in the lower term timeframes. Otherwise, it is going to test down, mid 59 to 59 and possibly even under, down to the current low side structure. Above there, we're looking for it to play up to the $61.5, $62,000, and then potentially take out 62.5, and then things get more interesting to the upside. And that is what I'm going to leave you with today. I do want to let you know, as we are done with the analysis now, we had the Pepe Ordinals Maxi developers and myself had a Spaces event today. It is in my profile there. It was recorded. I do suggest you go and listen to it. It was we had a great time, really fun conversation with everyone there, and I hope that everyone that attended that had a good time and maybe learned a thing or two. With all of that out of the way, I will tell you, you have a wonderful morning, a wonderful afternoon, and a wonderful evening. No matter where you are in the world, please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.